So much for joining. Thank you everyone for coming tonight. We're going to get started with our presentation right away. So this is another one of the seminars that we're doing with the students. And today we're going to be focusing on moving to Ann Arbor. So, yeah.
Emma is not able to join us tonight, so I will go ahead and get started with the introductions for thus facilitating. So my name is Brett Cohen. I am a current MSW student here on campus. I am doing a dual degree with the social work program and with higher education. And I live in an off-campus apartment here in Ann Arbor, and I'm originally from the state of Illinois, grew up outside of Chicago and lived in the city before moving here.
All right, and Dahlia isn't able to join tonight. So I'll introduce myself. My name is Kohler Olszewski. I'm in the advanced standing advanced standing track. I graduate in, I think, 17 days now, so I'm very excited. And I am in the global pathway. I'm originally from Stevens Point, Wisconsin, so I moved to Ann Arbor last July. And so we're getting close to saying goodbye to Ann Arbor now. And yeah.
Hi, I am Kaylee. Shani is also unable to join us tonight, but my name's Kaylee. I am in the IP pathway. That's also the interpersonal practice pathway. I'm also a 12-month student, so I'll also be graduating with Kohler here in like 17 or so days. And I also moved from Iowa to here, so I am an out-of-state student as well.
All right.
You go ahead, Kohler.
Okay. For our agenda tonight, we're going to look at housing and the cost of living. We're going to talk about just transportation, so public and potentially private, parking, what that looks like in Ann Arbor. We're going to really talk about the weather because that's something that a lot of students are curious. We'll kind of briefly touch about the community, and then going beyond that, we have just a few like grocery store resources for people who are curious about grocery shopping. And then we have some additional resources. And then, of course, we'll always have time for questions at the end.
So I can get us started with this first slide on, housing and cost of living. So earlier in the summer, we did host a session specifically diving into looking into housing and how you can find it. So if you ever want to watch that recording, you can reach out to the Office of Student Services so that we can provide that to you. But just kind of as an overview of things that were shared there, as well as any additional information to cover, there are options with university housing. So within the University of Michigan, there are on-campus housing options specifically tailored to graduate students. So this offers convenience, community, and proximity to campus resources. And so the main halls for graduate students, there's Munger Graduate Residence Halls. Kohler lives there, so if you want to hear more about that, you can reach out to Kohler. But essentially it's suite style living. You do still have your own bedroom and bathroom, but then you share a living space, which includes a kitchen and living room area with other roommates. And then there's also Northwood Apartments, which is in the North Campus area, and that's usually single family homes. Looking into that, you'll either be in studios or one bedroom apartments. And so it's still set up more of an apartment, but within that university housing umbrella. There's also the Martha Cook building, which is a women's housing option. So it's a fully woman residence hall, mixture of undergrads and grad students. Similarly, there are co-ops. So co-ops are shared living spaces. You'll be living in sort of like a house, but then there's, shared responsibilities within you and your roommates. So rotating who is signing up for dinners and stuff like that. But it's a great way to build community in that way. If you're looking into off-campus apartments, there are still so many apartments and complexes available here in Ann Arbor. A lot of them do get leased by undergraduates, but then for many of them, they still will have opportunities becoming available on your standard apartment websites. So it's websites such as apartments.com, Zillow, any other websites that you typically use to search for apartments, those will still be popping up in the next month or so. So you can definitely look there for the options. If you wanted to look into either roommate options or perhaps people are posting, offering subleases, there is a website called Beyond the Diag that's run from the university, but specifically for students who want to live off campus. So that website shows both information about how to find off-campus apartments. It also will have roommate finding tools. So either people can post if they're looking for a new roommate, or they can post if they have an open bedroom and somebody else is able to move in. So you can search on there. Similarly, the School of Social Work intranet has a website that will allow you to search specifically for social work students who are posting about roommate situations. And again, they can either post that they already have housing and just need a new roommate, or if they're searching for new housing and are looking for somebody to search for new housing with. And then the last note on this slide is about the housing webinar that we hosted earlier in the summer. So if you wanted to revisit that, when you receive this slide deck, it'll have a link to go straight to that recording.
All right, I can hop in about transportation. So the ride is Ann Arbor's public transportation system. I believe the ride is also free to university students as long as you have your student ID. And the M ride is the University of Michigan student bus system. It's a bus system you can ride for free. You can do the park and ride, which is pretty easy. So very cost alternative to parking in Ann Arbor, because it's probably going to cost you about $10 a day to park here. So it is a very nice cost saving alternative. They do have places like, say you're in like Ypsilanti, or if you're in another city, you can park like outside of Ann Arbor and it'll bring you right to the school. Park and Ride offers a lot of free all-day parking, easy access to the ride's fixed bus route system as well. And then, do you need to bring a car? It basically depends on your personal needs and preferences. A lot of students use the bus, they walk, they bike. If you are close to campus, you can just walk to campus or do whatever you like. And you can also get by without having one, especially for your field placement. We have another webinar about that, but you can select an option in your field placement determination if you do not have a car. So that also makes it easier. So you can get by pretty easy without a car. And if you decide to have one, it is easy to get to and from field placement depending on where you decide to go. And there are parking passes available in the case that you do have a car as well.
One thing I wanted to add about broader transportation, say you don't have a car but want to travel to places outside of Ann Arbor, I am a big fan of the Amtrak. There is a station just north of campus, so very easy to get to. And when you're on the Amtrak, there's a line that goes directly to, well, not directly, there's stops along the way, but it takes you to Chicago. Again, I'm originally from there, so I take the Amtrak constantly to get back home. So big fan of that. There's also Amtrak rides that take you to Detroit, when then you can travel to elsewhere. If you wanted to fly out of Detroit, there is a shuttle bus that will pick up in the downtown Ann Arbor area and drive you directly to the airport, and then you can catch a flight there. So that's also very convenient.
All right, I'll hop in and talk about parking. So there is some campus lots that are available. Just make sure that when you are looking, if you're looking at purchasing a parking pass, that you go on and just read what their requirements are for different parking passes. The University of Michigan goes by a color code system. And to my understanding, and the parking pass that I have purchased has been the yellow parking pass with after hours, which allows you to park in the lots after the time that is on the signs. And you can go to the link below for that. There's also public parking. It's important to just recognize that the public parking, some of it is metered parking. So you would have to, of course, pay for that independently. And then there's also, beyond that, sometimes if you're lucky, I know a few of the students do this, that you can park in like the residential communities around campus for free, and then you just have to make the walk. It is important that that isn't a guaranteed parking spot, but that is also an option. And then there's, of course, the Park and Go, which is on the edge of Ann Arbor and Ypsilanti. And I know we kind of already talked about it with the ride, but you can park there for free, and then you can take the bus in. And typically the bus system is pretty on track for that. And then below, there's just also options for accessible parking. And all of these are hyperlinked, of course, that you could look at them once you get the slide deck.
One super fun tip that I've learned recently is that the Ross School of Business has a parking garage that, at least this past year, I cannot guarantee if it's going to continue this way in the future, but for this past year, after 5 p.m., it is an open lot for anyone to park in. So the gate literally stays open. So you can go in and park, and that's super helpful if you have one of the night classes, because sometimes our night classes are from like 6 to 9 p.m. So if you wanted to drive for that, the Ross parking garage is right there.
Brett, you reminded me as well. So parking in Ann Arbor, typically after 6 o'clock parking is free on the streets, and it goes from 6 to 6. So from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. parking is free on the streets in Ann Arbor and in the parking, like the public parking garages as well. So thank you for reminding me.
Okay, now the fun topic of weather. It is currently a rainy night here in Ann Arbor, and we had some thunderstorms yesterday too. So that's the season that we're in right now. But you will get all 4 seasons here in Ann Arbor. I know at the beginning of the call, Kohler, Kaylee, and myself all talked about where we're originally from. And so all of us are from Midwestern states. So it hasn't been too much of a culture shock for us. We know that A, you can never really trust a weather app. It will change in the blink of an eye. And B, it will get cold here during the winter. Those are some things that you just need to know up front. Summers, though, are warm. They're also very humid. I remember my roommate when I first moved to Ann Arbor is originally from Denver, and he stepped outside the first day and asked, "Why does it feel like I'm swimming?" That's the humidity for you. So on days where it becomes very humid, it can be really wet and sweaty. So be ready for that. Also carry layers with you even in the summers, because the School of Social Work building has been very cold inside. It's nice that they're blasting the AC, but if you don't come prepared, like myself, on Monday I was shivering because I was dressed for summer, and so I had shorts and t-shirt on, and then I got into the building that was a very chilled 62 degrees. Then thinking about fall and spring, they're mild and pleasant. Honestly, those are the best times ever. So happy with falls and spring. Fall here especially is just gorgeous. You're having temperatures ranging from mid 40s to mid 60s. Spring will have a lot more rain, as it should be expected. You know, the old saying, April showers bring May flowers. So that's definitely the case around here, but fall cannot be beat. And then winters. Both want to highlight the cold temperatures. I feel like snowfall has not been as big of an issue in the past few years, but that is still something to keep in mind. If you've never seen snow before, it is really pretty the first few times, and then it gets annoying. But you know, we get through it. definitely worthwhile investing in a good pair of boots. Definitely want to invest in a good coat, something that will keep you warm. Again, layers is so important. And the other thing about winter is the daylight will end a lot earlier as well. So I mentioned before those night classes, be prepared that sometimes you'll show up to a class and it's already dark outside, which is depressing, but we always have sun lamps if you need those to get through the winter. And we're all in it together. The one thing that I love about the social work building is the atrium has so many windows overhead. So any day that there is sunlight, you can sit in the atrium and enjoy the sunlight from warmth. So that's how we get through. And then the last note is just being prepared for the changing weather conditions, especially during winter months. And I'd also say just like during storm months, a lot of my past professors have been super flexible when it came to the winter. Even if it was just a regular snowstorm, they recognized like, hey, I don't want to drive in these conditions. I don't want to have to walk outside in this. So I don't want any of you to have to do it either. And they were willing to transition class to Zoom so that we could stay at home during that weather. So definitely pay attention to any emails from them during stormy seasons. But yeah, you gotta love it.
I want to hop in, Brett, because we talked a lot about like ourselves, but for those who might be bringing a car with you to campus, who are not from the Midwest, I would strongly recommend in getting yourself like a snow brush with an ice scraper on the back. That is something that you're gonna need. It's not a want, it's a need, unfortunately, in the Midwest. I would also recommend looking at your battery and your tires just to make sure that they are kind of all weather battery and tires. And just because driving in snow is a lot different than people may think. And so that's just important to get your vehicle also prepared, because that first snowfall, while like beautiful, can also kind of be, I don't want to say dangerous, but like can be scary when you're driving your vehicle. So I always want to throw that in there too.
Yes, thank you for that. There are a fair number of like mechanics around campus too. So if you run into car troubles, especially during the winter, they'll be around to help. Would definitely recommend just checking on like a website for AAA about any car tips and tricks for winter times, because there's a lot of good ones.
All right, so the community. So University of Michigan is very welcoming, and Ann Arbor itself is a lively college town, so it's very integrated within the community, which is really great. That's what I do love about college towns. They're very integrated. The city has a lot of arts and culture and numerous restaurants, cafes, shops, local shops. It's amazing. But the overall atmosphere is welcoming, diverse, supportive, and it's definitely an ideal place to learn. I would say that over the course of the year, I have not been able to try as much as I've been wanting to for like local food and all that jazz, but I definitely recommend checking it out, like maybe planning a day every week to just check out a new local place if you have the funds to do so. But definitely check out all the events that go on in Ann Arbor. Like during the summer, they have the Ann Arbor Summer Festivals, and they bring in some like big artists. I think I just saw, I don't know if anyone's a musical fan, but Renee Goldsberry, she was in Hamilton, like the original cast as Angelica. So it was really cool seeing that in live and in person. So just one of the many things Ann Arbor has to offer.
One thing I'll add in terms of community, Kohler and I have been on prospective student calls before, and I always love answering questions about, like the community in Ann Arbor, because I've shared that I used to live in Chicago. So I'm somebody who loves a big city. And Kohler, not to put you on the spot, but I know that you've said before you're more of a small town boy.
Yep.
So yeah. We have said in these calls before, and it's so true, Ann Arbor is like the Goldilocks town for both of us. For me, it has enough going on that I don't feel bored not being in a big city. All of the events that Kaylee was talking about and all of the restaurants and shops, like again, like Kaylee said, it's been a year since I've been here and I definitely have not tried everything. So still exciting exploring it all. And then Kohler, do you want to speak about your experience in Ann Arbor coming from a smaller town?
Yeah, absolutely. So a little bit of context. I come from a town that's smaller than the undergrad population of Ann Arbor, like of the University of Michigan. And when I originally came here, I thought Ann Arbor was this big, scary place, but very quickly, Ann Arbor has like shrunk in a very like nice way for me. And that being said, so while it's still got a big town feeling to it, it can be very homey and it can be very like welcoming, and because of all of like the community activities that are going on, it can really feel like a nice like small town vibe. um, I kind of second what everyone has said already, and I also want to say for those who may not have the funds to go and like go try a restaurant or something, there's a lot of free things to do in Ann Arbor as well, that you can kind of do on weekdays. I recommend going on Facebook if you have it and just looking at like events going on in the community. I know that have joined like a volleyball league and that's free, and I know a few other just activities that are very easily accessible, um, by public transportation or also walking, because Ann Arbor is a wonderfully like walkable town. I think we've said that, but it's a great town to walk through. So yeah, it's great. All right, and this leads me to, we've talked about food. Food is one of my favorite topics. Again, if you are a foodie, Ann Arbor will not disappoint you. But for those who like to cook, like myself, there are a number of grocery stores and like places to acquire food in Ann Arbor. And so the first one is a University of Michigan resource for those who might be experiencing food insecurity or who just need access to food at a free or I think reduced cost. And that's the Maize and Blue Cupboard. And it's a wonderful resource. They have everything from food to some household um, like amenities and such like that. It is food pantry style, so you are only able to take like a certain amount of stuff on the shelves, but they have that all clearly listed. And if you need an extra resource with that, you can click on the link, and they also have people who can help guide you through anything that you may need there. Um, the second one, if you are a fan of supporting like local growers or anything, um, there is the Ann Arbor Farmers Market that is going on almost all year round. And it's wonderful. It's on the Saturdays. It's in Carytown, which is just, I would say, like a 20-minute walk from the School of Social Work. And I think that's an exaggeration, but Carytown's beautiful, and I recommend going to see the farmers market. It is always hustle and bustle. The farmers market is on Sundays or on Saturdays, and then like the artisan market will also have food there is on Sundays. And then there's just a few grocery stores: Kroger, Meijer, Aldi, Walmart, Whole Foods, Trader Joe's. So all of those are located in Ann Arbor or Ann Arbor adjacent, and most of them are on the bus route. The only one that is not is Walmart. But if you have a friend that has a vehicle, Walmart is also a wonderful choice. And then also for those who may be seeking them out, there are lots of specialty grocery stores or like grocery stores that are specific to certain ethnic groups or just very niche grocery stores. And I listed a few of my favorites just because I knew of them. So there is like Galardia's Asian Market, and there's a number of them around town. Patel Brothers is another great one for Indian cooking supplies and just wonderful food there. And then the last one is the People's Co-op, which is also located not too far from the farmers market. And if you are familiar with co-ops, if you are interested in that, you can also go there. But yeah, that's just a brief overview of like where you can find food in Ann Arbor.
I do want to hop in and say that the farmers market actually is open Saturdays year round, but I believe during the summer it's 2 days a week. It's Wednesdays and Saturdays. Just so you know.
Good to know. Thank you.
Yeah, that's awesome to know. I didn't realize it had an extra day this summer either. I also wanted to add with groceries, when Kohler was talking about like if you don't have a car. So for a majority of the time that I've lived here, I have not had a car. And I signed up for grocery delivery services. I actually rotated through a few of them because a lot of them will give you a free trial for at least one whole month. So I was doing that to be able to avoid the extra fees. So little finance tip. But I have found a lot of great success with that. I think it's super convenient. But I've also been able to take the bus to and from grocery stores, and that also worked really well. So there are those additional options to be able to get your food even without a vehicle. And then on this last side, we just want to talk about additional resources. So International Center does provide a wide range of services to international students and scholars, including assistance with immigration and visa issues, cultural adjustment, and orientation to campus and the local community. They do an outstanding job of helping people feel welcome to the campus. They're also really great for any and all of those logistic pieces. And you can also access those types of resources through the Office of Student Services if you want to have kind of a specific contact with the School of Social Work, but the International Center works with students for the whole university. So definitely can reach out to them. There's also want to highlight the University of Michigan Health Services. So this offers comprehensive healthcare services to students, including primary care, mental health service, and wellness programs. So if you're coming to campus and either you don't have your own insurance or, like whatever situation you're in health insurance wise, all students, when they're actively enrolled, can go through the University Health Services. I go there for my primary care physician, and I think that it's super convenient. Again, it's covered with tuition. I did not need to sign up for additional insurance outside of it. And, as long as I'm on top of making my appointments, it actually works really well. And once you get signed up with kind of that primary care, it's super easy to just go into the health portal and make other appointments or ask questions or anything like that. They also do have a 24/7 nurse hotline. So if you just have medical related questions, I've called before about like sore throats or stuff like that, and just gotten good advice. And then of course, if they think that it's something that you should come in and be checked in for, they can help you arrange the check-in there. And then I'll also want to highlight the mental health services and wellness program. You can see on the slide, we've got what is referred to as the wellness wheel. And so these are the 8 dimensions of well-being. I happen to have an internship with Wolverine Wellness, so have to give them a shout out. They're kind of the champions of this wellness wheel on campus, but there's also additional resources here to support your well-being. So Wolverine Wellness offers wellness coaching, which is kind of a stepping stone to therapy. If you wanted therapy on campus, we have our CAPS, which is counseling and psychological services. They offer a range of interventions. So whether you're working one-on-one with a therapist, they also have a subscription to telehealth therapy. So you would get around 6 sessions of telehealth, which has worked very well for students as well. If you are dealing with conflict, we have our Office of Student Conflict Resources. If you need to talk about sexual assault cases, we have SAPAC or the Title IX office. So we have offices covering a range of needs. We obviously have our financial aid office that's specific for the university or for the School of Social Work, but then the larger University of Michigan has that. And we already mentioned about the different resources for both housing as well as food. So pretty much any type of assistance that you need, the university has it, and it is always free for students. So we definitely encourage you to reach out if you ever need it. And that's it for our content. Now we're opening the floor to any questions. So the way that this works, you can unmute to ask questions. If you would rather ask questions in the chat, you can do that as well. I'm going to stop sharing my screen now just so that I can see everybody and also monitor the chat in case questions come in that way. But go ahead and share your questions.
I have a question. So I just found out that I did not get on-campus student housing, which I know they're very limited. But I was still a little bummed about that. So I am in the scramble to try and find off-campus housing currently. And just was kind of wondering, I've been looking pretty much every single day at whatever it is, like out of the diag or whatnot. And what do you guys have any tips, insider places that you would like ideally love, like neighborhoods you'd love to be living in, or places like people have loved or know any last minute resources to check out?
I would personally say right off the bat, there is some roommate finders. So I would look into those. I'll find the links here in a minute, but there's a social work one where it's specifically social work students, and you can see which students need a roommate, and they put a little blurb about themselves, and you can see if you match with them. And then there's another one just school-wide, and I believe Brett uses that or used that at one point, so he might have a little more information on that one.
Yes, so this is like what you guys were talking about at the beginning, where like people already have places and they just like need a roommate for one of the other rooms.
Yes, I posted the link to just like the general Beyond the Diag home screen, but then also if you go under the tab of roommates, which right now, unfortunately for my side, it says that there's an error in trying to get to this tab. So hopefully that's not happening for you too, but essentially on that roommates link, people will post either if they already have housing and just want a new roommate to move in, or if they're still looking for housing. Like Kaylee mentioned, I used Beyond the Diag when I first moved here. I found somebody else who also did not yet have housing and was looking for a new roommate. We had like our roommate profile filled out, so I was able to kind of, before even reaching out, vet the other roommate of like, you know, what their living style is like, how they are as a roommate, all the kind of essentials that you want to know before you decide to live with somebody. But then I reached out, we chatted, and then from there, he and I went through the search process together. And again, like you already mentioned, just checking every day is the best advice we can give, because on websites like apartments.com, Zillow, realtor.com, those do get refreshed all the time. And with especially the apartments that will be coming up here in the next month or two, what's going to be posted is more of the ones that are part of the residential area, so a little bit further off campus most likely, and those will usually get posted as individuals in those apartments are letting the landlords know that they're not re-signing. So that's why it's kind of on a refreshing basis. It's also frustrating that not every property management uses all of the different websites. So that's why it might look a little different across the board. Going to your question though about specific areas to look into, Kohler mentioned Carytown, which is about a 20-minute walk away from the School of Social Work. It's just kind of north of Central Campus. Definitely a lively area. It has that farmers market. It's close to the downtown Ann Arbor area. I live in a neighborhood called Old West Side. It's right near the football stadium, and I really like that area. There's also the Burns Park area, which is gorgeous, more residential, definitely a lot of families around there. But you can also even look into surrounding towns. So Ypsilanti is a popular town that students will move to. It does tend to be cheaper rent than Ann Arbor, but that is one of the places that if you're living in Ypsilanti, typically you'll take your car to a park and ride and get onto the bus there.
Thank you.
Yeah. Hopefully that helps. I'm sorry that you're in this situation. It is very frustrating, especially because, you know, if you're waiting and banking on university housing to come through in this last minute scramble, it can be frustrating. The Beyond the Diag though also has like contact individuals that you can reach out to if it's getting to the point where you're like, I don't even know if I'm going to have a place in time. Definitely reach out to them and they can help you with like finding alternatives. And yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Other questions that folks have?
If there isn't any other questions, just so that we know, everyone will be receiving a follow-up email who has attended or registered for this. You'll get the recording of the lecture of this, and then you will also get the slide deck as well. And any other questions that you may have, you can always email us. We'll throw our emails into the chat, and that way you can have our contact information. And of course, you're always able to respond to the follow-up email as well. So, and we will go. All right. And if there aren't any other questions, that is really the end of our presentation tonight. Thank you all so much for coming. We appreciate it, and we're happy to be here and doing this for y'all. So thank you all so much, and we can't wait to see you in the fall.